All right. My name is Rich Schmidt. I'm here with Peter Clem. It's October 25th, 2023. We're at the Nicholson Library at Linfield University. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here. Thank you for including me in this.
First question, tell us a little bit about your life before Linfield. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in the city of Orange, California, just south of Los Angeles, and it was beautiful. There were orange groves at the time in 1966, and not far from Disneyland, the original Disneyland. In fact, my mother worked at Disneyland, and my parents would go to California Angels baseball games. They'd drop my brother and I off at Disneyland, and that was where we would have some entertainment. Very, very cool. It was amazing, yeah. Dad got a job in Vancouver, Washington, came up and worked for a company called TRW. Actually, he had an intern, and this was in the 70s, intern by the name of Bill Gates, whom doesn't remember my dad so much. That's too bad. If you're an intern, you got to remember who you take care of, who took care of you. Then we moved to Corvallis, Oregon, when I was in the third grade, and that's where I grew up. Corvallis, loved Corvallis. Let's jump to my freshman year of my time at Corvallis High School, when it was probably about 43 years ago this week, maybe, when I was just a clueless freshman that was confused and didn't know. I was struggling to fit in, struggling to know where I was going. Sure, I was in my classes, but I wanted to understand a bit more what was the next, where was I going to go? So I walked into the career counseling office, and they had me take a test. It was a Scantron type test where you answered these questions, and then you put it in the computer, and it spat out, here are these recommendations for what you could do professionally. I had friends that were delighted with the results, that were, you're going to be a business entrepreneur, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be an accountant, you're going to just do wonderful things. Me, the computer identified based on my responses, I was going to be a sanitation engineer, which is not a career that I was expecting, nor that I wanted to do. Nothing against sanitation engineers. Someone has to take care of the trash, right? But it just kind of pointed to my lack of enthusiasm for anything. Sadly, it didn't change me at all. At that time. It did not. I went through high school. I was pretty good at basketball and played on the team. In fact, I was on the Oregon State Championship team in 1984. And with the basketball success, that opened some doors to be able to play basketball in college. I narrowed it down to Pacific, Willamette, and Linfield, and spent time on all three campuses with the administrators there as well as the coaches. And it came down to the environment, and Linfield just was hands down just something that felt so natural, and it was a part of me. It felt like I had been here before, and I was just thrilled to land in this spot. I come to Linfield still clueless, however, about what my career's going to be. I really had no interest, and my brother was a business major at Oregon State University. I thought, okay, well, I'll just kind of go for the business degree. It was a ridiculously painful thing. The classes that I was taking made no sense. And it was freshman core classes as well too, but there were some business things that I was taking, made no sense. On the side though, I had volunteered to be a part of an organization at Linfield, a student organization called STARS, and I have no idea what it stands for anymore. I'm guessing the S stands for student. But our job was every Sunday night we would go to Melrose and we would make phone calls to prospective Linfield students. So here are students that were juniors and seniors that somehow we got their phone numbers. We would call them up and talk sweetness about coming to McMinnville and Linfield. And it was really, really wonderful. It got me, I'm an introvert, and it got me kind of out of that a little bit, just to help understand the value of actually being able to communicate to another person in a fresh way, to be enthusiastic about something that you believe in. The prize, I don't know, we were unpaid, but the payment, if you will, to all of the volunteers was to be the models for a Linfield brochure. So they took us and they put us in various places around campus, in front of Murdoch and in Dillon, and somehow, as fate, we learned now, works in super odd ways, I was chosen to represent the mass communications department, and I was photographed in the radio station, KSLC, behind the microphone. It was super awkward, super weird, in that they were live, the station's on the air, and so the DJ put on some long Depeche Mode song, got out of the chair, I hopped into the chair, and Doc Singletary stood behind me. I'd never met Doc. I didn't know, he was like, this guy's behind me, and take a picture, there I am now in this magazine. But when I'm sitting with this microphone right here and my hands on, pretending to be on the controls or the turntable or whatever it was on, I thought, oh, this is a direction for me. This finally, I'm still a freshman here, spring of my freshman year. I think I may have been my fall of sophomore, I don't recall. This could be a path for me, I thought. I immediately got myself involved at the radio station. I started signing up for media or mass communication classes, and away I went. And it was awesome. It felt like a family, and I was finally studying things I cared about, and I was getting, I'll credit my wife for this statement, and she's probably heard it from many other people, but I've only heard it from her. She said, you're getting an education, not a degree. And I truly appreciate that I was really just exploring stuff I cared about instead of just like absorbing things to get grades so I could be handed a diploma so I could go into the world to do who knows what. So the KLC was so meaningful to me. It really was just a rich experience. I was the co-music director with a gentleman by the name of Scott Stoddard, who runs the Grants Pass Courier. Somebody else that might be interesting for this archive, if you haven't met with him yet. Oh my gosh, what an awesome story he is. He is fighting, newspapers are dying all over the country. He is still running a family-owned business that has not been franchised out, and it's remarkable the effort and the good journalism that is happening, that Scott and his team are doing down in Grants Pass. Also, another name that, and the media student, the ASCOM Student of the Year when I graduated was John Prevadello, who ended up being a general manager of one of the television stations in Eugene, started his own marketing company. You always look up to people as your peers. I wanted to be him. He was such a smart and thoughtful and creative person. He inspired me, and I truly am honored that I got to be a fellow student with Scott and John and so many others. In fact, John volunteered at, or he may have even been paid at, a local radio station here in town where there was a DJ that volunteered his time to come to campus and listen to our air checks, as student air checks. The guy was blind too, so he had this extra awesome ear, and he would just give beautiful feedback to us and help us improve our presentations on air. Possibly one of the biggest moments, so that's kind of the foundational stuff. One of the biggest moments that happened with me as a Linfield student did not happen on the Linfield campus. It happened when Doc Singletary took us on a field trip to the ABC station in Portland, KATU. There was an afternoon talk show that was on the air called 2 at 4. And the spring of 1987 was when we did this field trip. And They had a live studio audience. We clapped along with the 30 other people in the crowd that were all at least age 70 or what have you. But we got to see the behind the scenes of this real show and these cameras that cost $100,000 back then. And the producers came and talked to us. And one of them even said, hey, we got a summer intern. And in fact, there's lots of summer internships available at this station. Of that crowd, I think 4 of us ended up being summer interns at KA2 that summer. Scott Stoddard being one of them, Paige Hardwick, not Paige, Paige Wallace, anyway, Ruben Contreras. All names of some really wonderful people that I went to school with here. I signed up for the internship. They said, yeah, you bet, come on. Learned so much, met some awesome celebrities, and 2 months in to my internship, they announced that the show was being canceled. Thought, no big deal for me. I get to go back to school. I got a senior year to finish out. But the people that were working on this show, what do they do after this? They started falling away because they were getting jobs elsewhere. Well, the show's still on the air for another month, though. So somebody had to do these jobs. I got to do them as an intern. I got to do things that people that had been in the industry for 10, 20, 30 years were doing. I got to do some directorial stuff and extra producer work and all sorts of other technical elements. It was such an awesome opportunity, and I proved my value to the station. And it's very much of a news station. This was kind of the offshoot, right? Talk shows, what's a talk show? It's kind of just filling time for whoever's around watching afternoon television after their soap operas are done at the time. So I went back to school and finished my fall semester, fall quarter semester, whatever it was, yes, at here. And got a call from KATU saying, hey, we got an opening for an assistant producer on our morning talk show, AM Northwest. I said, well, wait, I'm not officially done with school. So I called Linfield, and we were on winter break. Whom I connected with the building shut down, I have no idea whom it was, but they looked at my records. I had had enough credits. I was done. I actually did not have to return for Jan term, or spring. So great, I'm going to work. So I hadn't an hour before I accepted for that position, I got a call from the CBS station, Coin, who was launching a live Oregon Lottery show. Though they were going to, every Saturday night or something, or Sunday, they were going to, do the ping pong ball thing, and it was going to be live just for Oregon, and they needed someone on the production staff, and I passed on that, went with KATU. It was the right choice because the Coin show didn't last more than 3 or 4 months. And AM Northwest, I was at that station for 6.5 years.
Maybe the lottery show would still be on if you had taken that job. Maybe that.
I love it. Great thinking.
Okay, so we're going to catch back up. We're going to catch back up with the career in a second here, but let's talk about Linfield a little bit before. You mentioned taking a long time to kind of weigh your decision coming out of high school about where you wanted to go to school. You mentioned Linfield feeling right. So tell me about sort of first impressions of campus and some of the kind of the early memories of being a student here.
Early memories at Linfield. As I first came on campus, it was the basketball coach at the time was a guy named Tim Miller, and he was super low key and friendly and had a terrific handshake. The players actually welcomed me greatly. The star players at the time, Randy Schiff being one of them, that welcomed me and was excited. There wasn't any kind of off-putting, as opposed to some of the other schools. Actually, it was like, yeah, I was a I was a tertiary consideration that they didn't want to be bothered with. They had their clique, and that kind of put me off a little bit. Just the Linfield vibe of the people. The age of the building, which is kind of funny to see, frankly, all the new beautiful buildings today that attract the students. If they were all like that, I frankly would not have come. I loved the age stuff. It just felt rich and traditional and valued and loved to me. I wasn't impressed with the food at Dillon, however, on my visit to Linfield. Truly, it was a feeling. There wasn't much else, because remember, I had no clue what I was going to do with my life, so I couldn't point to the psychology department or the business wing of the Taylor Hall, that, hey, look at this vacant classroom. You're going to do great things here. That was not meaningful to me. It really was about the people. And the vibe.
What about when you got here as a freshman?
When I got here as a freshman, again, the basketball team was my community. I never did join a fraternity. I didn't need to. I had my sports team. I lived in Campbell Hall, which was the worst dormitory on campus. Didn't care. It was just fun. We had a wonderful time. We were all freshmen. You're out of the house for the first time for real, and you're going to cut loose, and we did, but in mostly smart ways, and I just developed a family, and it was a community, and it was a new experience for me. Not that I didn't have a community in my high school days. It's just kind of this newness and the enthusiasm. Certainly as I think about this now, an odd point in my time at Linfield. I needed work study to pay for my schooling here, and I worked at the dining hall. I worked at Dillon, and I was a dishwasher in the back. I also took care of the salad bar. I did the grill on Sundays and made burgers for folks. Being a worker, I had done concessions and other kind of restaurant stuff in the past. Not restaurant, but concessions and other things that you're treated lesser. Here I was washing people's dishes in college, and I was not treated lesser. I was part of the community. Here I was refilling the mushrooms and the croutons in the salad bar, and people would come. We would chat actually about classes. I got the nickname Captain Salad from. That is the dream. That is the dream. But I was like the mayor of the cafeteria, and I was the lowest person on the totem pole in the entire place, and everyone else just wanted to eat, and it really was just a lovely vibe, and I just saw the value of community in a way that I hadn't seen it before, and I was so appreciative of that. I referenced the radio station, so this is in the days of vinyl record albums, and all of the record companies would send us the vinyl, the records for us to play in the station. And being one of the music directors, I would stop at the mailbox in Riley Hall every day, and it was like Christmas. Every day. It was amazing to get all of this vinyl, and Scott and I and others, we'd go to the back of the station in Pioneer Hall, the main floor of Pioneer Hall, and we'd just do needle drop sessions for hours listening to music. Of course, there was the College Music Journal would advise, hey, here's what we recommend you play, here's the top hits in college radio and whatever. So we'd run that, but then we'd also cart up our own picks. It was just such a beautiful thing that just made me aware of even this cooler environment of the music scene. I don't know what you were doing on Saturday nights when you were in college. There were times when I was doing things that I won't tell my kids, but there were also times that I would actually go in with friends and we would edit together promos. And it was like a lab. The school just gave me the opportunity. It gave me the key to play and expand and make mistakes in a career that I hadn't known existed 2 years prior. And now here I am in this swimming pool lab, as I said, I'm getting to grow, and it was wonderful. And literally, this was the time of cutting and splicing tape prior to all of the cool digital activities available today. And it'd spend till 2, 3 in the morning cutting things on Saturday, and come home and roommates, or you see passing other people after a party, and we had different stories from the evening, definitely. Yes.
I only ever did laundry on Saturday nights. I don't know what you're talking about. But so tell me, you mentioned before we move on from Linfield, you mentioned you came here for basketball. So tell me about your basketball experience here.
It was very humbling. Basketball was super humbling for me. Our team was mediocre. The JV experience was, I was one of the stronger players on the JV team, which was great. And I remember the conversation too with the coach when he made his division of varsity versus JV, and he pulled aside myself and David Craven and Brad Will and said, "You guys are great. I believe in you guys. You're on JV though." And we played, and we took it. And to this day, I consider JV one of the greatest experiences ever. It's like the kids' table, where you get to just go crazy and be playful, but you're still serious, and you get to experiment with things, and the grown-ups aren't paying attention to you. And that I was also throw that into the lab kind of bucket here too. And there were times actually when our JV team would take on the varsity, and we would give them a hard time, and we would make them work harder than some of the other schools in the league. It was wonderful. The greatest years of basketball I'd had. Our coach was Cliff Fairchild, who had been a superstar with the team in the years prior. And I mentioned David Craven, who I think he is now in the Linfield Athletic Hall of Fame. Ended up scoring a heck of a lot of points, and he didn't do it. He started as a sophomore on the varsity team. As a sophomore, I did get some playing time in. I was a solid off the bench contributor. Unfortunately, my knee got blown out at. What's the school that's now Corbin in Salem? Was that Warner Pack?
Western Baptist.
Western Baptist, okay, right. So it was Western Baptist. Yeah, knee-to-knee contact with another player. My patella went, and I'm out for the rest of that year. And tried to come back my junior year, and I played, and I did okay. But I elected not to play my senior year. Tim Miller had left. Larry Doty was the new coach that came in. Never played for. I heard he was an awesome coach. He never actually reached out to me, though. I think he just assumed that I was going to be playing because I was on the roster before. I never showed up, and he never reached out. Said, like, "Where are you, Clem?" And it didn't. So it's like an easier decision. And actually, it kind of helped. Again, the fate story, I guess, it helped me easily disappear at school and start my career at the end of December instead of having to stick around to play basketball.
So you talked earlier about the kind of the happenstance of happening to find a job and happening to find out that you'd actually graduated already at the same time. Tell me about entering into that job at KATU. Did you feel ready to take on something like that? And what was the original job like?
I felt ready. Because of the foundation that I had through our mass communications education here at Linfield. Doc Singletary, legendary, and I miss him greatly. We exchanged Christmas cards until he passed, and it was just so meaningful to me. But and not that this was a brilliant concept that he made up, but in our television production class, we were split into teams, and we would rotate responsibilities every single week. So you got to taste directing, you got to taste camera operation, you got to taste producing, you got to taste being a talent, you got to taste editing, whatever other elements were there. You got to do and understand and appreciate all responsibilities that happen. I carried that with me to KATU, and I made sure that I understood and spent time with everybody on staff that had something to do with putting that TV show on the air. And it really made things great for me in the way that they actually helped me along. That people could see that I struggled in some cases here or there, and they would jump in because they knew I cared not just about the show, but about them as well too. And I think that was a great benefit. Look, the work I was doing was not the most complicated. I was right out of college. They weren't expecting much to do. They could train me. I was making copies a lot. I've never made coffee in my life, actually, I'll tell you that. So thankfully I didn't have to do, and I don't drink coffee, I've never made coffee. I literally, and I know there's the Keurig things, and it's not difficult probably, but I've not done it. But I would watch and learn. I would watch and learn, and they were, my coworkers were wonderful about giving me the easier of the assignments. I didn't do a lot of the guest booking in my early days. That grew, and when I did, there was I had a shadow that looked over me a bit, so I had great help. I was the audience warm-up guy, which was fantastic in pulling me out of my shell. And when you have an audience too of a bunch of 75-year-olds they had to be at the station by 8 in the morning just to sit in an audience and watch this TV stuff. So you don't have the youngest people around. Those that are there, they've been up since 5, and they've got their coffee and they're wired and they're ready to go as well as they can. But I could be the warming up. I could use the same jokes day after day after day, and they welcomed it and laughed at the same. Yes, a robot could have done it in many ways. But it was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun. I was just going to say one other lesson I learned, an interesting task that KATU had asked of as both an intern as well as my associate producer gig at the station. They would get hundreds of letters at the time, weeks, months, that would stack up of people saying, you need to do this topic, you need this guest on your show. And they pitched all of these ideas. It was my job to call up the rejections, which was brilliant in multiple. I hated it. It was the worst thing ever, right? It was I would have rather learned how to make coffee than this. But it made such a difference in my life and in who I am. First of all, from the KATU lens, and it showed that they cared about the community. And you hear from somebody like, hey, lovely idea, but we're going to pass. But want you to know that we care about you, and that's a viewer. It guarantees they're going to stick around and they're going to keep watching, which is such a fantastic idea. From the professional side of things, yeah, it sucked for me, but I learned how to speak to people in a different way. Letting people down is a hard thing to do, right? And when they challenge you on that, that's even harder, and you got to tap dance. It's kind of like, hey, and calling producers help to say, hey, no, they're not going to help me at all. I have to justify, look, we can't do it. And so without lying, I couldn't, it's not in me to lie, so I'd have to actually explained to them, hey, look, we got too many other guests going on, and it's maybe a compelling topic to you. It's not to everyone else out in our viewer base. So sorry, you'll need to pass. So that project, by the way, was called the TBNTs, the Thanks But No Thanks Project. Smart. I don't know if they do it anymore.
That's an incredible learning process for you there.
Yeah.
I love it. You'd had some experience as an intern before. You weren't coming into this totally, wide-eyed. But I'm curious if the TV industry, as you got to know it through that role, was what you expected it to be, and if not, what was surprising about it to you?
Everything was new and surprising. I didn't anticipate a thing. It was all whiz bang wow. I mean, when you go from college production equipment to this TV station in the 25th size market in the nation, that's the real deal. And I couldn't have imagined anything better and cooler. And so it was wide-eyed wonder and enthusiasm. And the pros that were doing it just loved what they did as well. I think that's really kind of what stood out to me. I'd spent a lot of time with with other professionals, and it just kind of seems like there's a lot of robotic jobs out there. But these people, they were crafting something, and it was artistry in action, and I loved it.
So you mentioned you were there for 6.5 years. Mm-hmm. Tell me how your role evolved while you were there, and as you kind of took on more and more challenges.
Yeah, I was able to actually really produce content, and producing in this particular case was really the role of the guest booker. So we had a calendar, and they had 5 or 6 or whatever slots per day, and we would fill them out what we can. There were 4 of us on the staff that were responsible. Some of them were weekly. There was the chef, or there was the home tips person. There was a style person that would come in, so that would fill in a lot. But then we would also try and do something substantial in the first half hour of the show, a meaningful topic that was going on, something maybe relevant and timely, or thankfully at that time it was kind of the heyday of book tours. Tons of authors. I mean, they just got thrown on an airplane and thrown around the country and had to do all these interviews, but they were live and in person. Today it's just like a camera and them talking to everyone remotely, but now they're sitting on a couch next to the hosts of our program, and so to identify who would be the right authors, to craft the story of, you don't just hand the book to the host and expect them to read it and come up with the questions, because they've got so much going on as well too, and they're part of the community as well. But and sometimes they are. Sometimes they say, look, I know this author better than you do. You're not going to be able to come up with enough good questions for me. I'll take this one from here. So those were kind of the spoon-fed opportunities. It was what we called personal stories. That was the richer opportunity, that we would go find somebody who, had lived through something painful or something exciting, and to convince them to come to be a part of the program was really challenging and really rewarding at the same time. Yes, we'll get to part of my story later on where that actually, I failed at that. I could have been better, but we'll get there. I grew in that I was able to, I continued learning more responsibilities within the production team and in the director's booth. I was pushing the envelope creatively. It's pretty, it's local Portland, Oregon talk show, and the audience is aged and what have you. So they're not looking for a lot of creative activities there, but we'd push the edge and try and do something, try and keep up with some of the cooler stuff that's happening in the primetime world, and so made some progress. So it was, in many ways, it was really kind of the safe environment to play, where you know that the ratings are low to begin with. You can't do a heck of a lot of damage. Ad sales is still selling the shows, so we're doing well with revenue, as long as the ratings are good enough, right? After 6 years or so, I just kind of ran out of steam. In this, I loved my coworkers. I love them to this day. But doing the same thing in the same environment, in the same community, I just kind of, is there something more for me, something different? I'm ready. So I started leafing through all the trade journals and seeing the positions that were posted across the country, and Cleveland and New Orleans and Minneapolis, and I submitted resumes and got a call from Minneapolis. And so my wife and I landed there in the early 90s.
What was the role, and why did you choose that one?
They chose me. I didn't tell. Yeah, there were not that many jobs in the TV talk show world, in the local TV talk show world. And so you take what you can. Minneapolis was a size 15 market as opposed to a size 25 market with Portland. So I was going up in the world. Financially, I was not going up hardly at all. But it was, that's kind of the progression. You go from small market to a little bit bigger market to bigger market to New York or Los Angeles or what have you. That's everyone's dreamed that path. And so I just didn't think about it, but so much that it would be different. I jumped for that. I hear, the story that I hear from the executive producer who actually selected me, the job had been open for a couple of months, and her boss said, "You gotta hire somebody, just hire somebody." And out of desperation, she just grabbed the first resume off the top of the pile. Guess whose it was? I am the luckiest guy there. I mean, truly. Got a call, got to go hang out, fly to Minneapolis, hung out with the staff, clearly won them over. Got the call a couple days after I got back to Portland. They said, "Come on out with us." So my wife and I packed up a little U-Haul, and we drove from Portland to Minneapolis, and our next journey was there. Our little U-Haul is packed. We got our car on the tow trailer in the back. We hop in we're going to drive to Montana on day one. So we leave at 4 something in the morning, and we hop into the cab and look at each other. My wife grabs the mixtape from underneath from the cassette, whatever, pops in the cassette player, presses play. We have no idea what music that she put in. Turn it on, and it's Tony Bennett singing, "The best is yet to come, won't it be fine?" And that just told us the story that we were going to be okay. We were terrified. What are we doing? What are we thinking? Of course, everyone's going to be okay, right? I don't know that that's a fateful thing, but it was meaningful to us at the time that we were doing the right thing, and we did.
Amazing.
Fun.
So tell me about the time in Minneapolis.
So Minneapolis, the TV show was called Good Company. It was at the ABC affiliate KSTP, which was located actually in St. Paul, kind of actually, right near the border between the Twin Cities. And the show was an afternoon talk show. The executive producer was also the host, and the co-host was his wife. So it's a really interesting dynamic. Although I appreciated that there was more care that, hey, if he's the executive producer and he's also the host, he really, really wants to make himself look good, but he wants to make the show look good too. So he was critical at a level of what I wasn't expecting or hadn't been used to in Portland. Not that the Portland producers didn't debate and strategize and question what we should put on the air. Clearly, I had to reject thousands of people. But so Steve Edelman and Sharon were the hosts. They were wonderful, wonderful people. The team was about double the staff, and it was a much quicker pace. It took me a while to keep up. It did, and I thought that wow, Portland's pretty hip and pretty awesome. Minneapolis was not hip and awesome. I didn't think. It was really great. What stood out to me though with my coworkers in Minneapolis, they got so much done. Their work ethic was so good, but they looked like they didn't work at all. It was just part of them being. And they got things done, and it was just so casual. They had time for walks between meetings, and it was just so beautiful. I thought, how do you hang on to this? And I've not been able to, frankly, in my career. I didn't get the Midwestern vibe, but they do it really well. I got to I got pushed in a new creative way. I got pushed with writing. And by the way, if that was, and at the time, I hear this is different at Linfield now, that was the gap that I had going into the big world. I just did not have enough writing skills. I didn't have enough writing practice going into the industry. And I had to struggle learning through that. So it was really, to be honest, it was very much doing the same thing, but now in a new city with a new team. But I was learning a bunch, and I was super excited. I really was. Well, then the show got canceled. Actually, but before it got canceled, I'm sorry, rewind all that. Sometime in early '94, I actually got a phone call from the Oprah Winfrey Show. And they said, hey, we're looking for producers. You interested? And I said, nah, I've only been here 4 or 5 months. My wife just got a gig here, and not a good time. Thanks for calling, click. So the show gets canceled. I'm calling them back up. Hey, you called Peter, remember me? You called me. You were looking for producers. I'm available now. Let's talk. And they did not hang up on me. They actually said, great, let's talk. They had gotten my name, by the way, from a woman named Corbin Seitz. Corbin was the face of fashion for Target in the 90s. She would travel the country and do fashion shows that all the local talk shows would put on, as well as national talk shows. So I had worked with her in Portland, I'd worked with her in Minneapolis. Apparently, she'd been on the Oprah Winfrey Show. The producers at the Oprah Winfrey Show said, hey, do you know any local producers that actually are pretty good, because we need some people? Because, and that's kind of, it's like the minor leagues, right? And let's go to the big leagues. She had mentioned my name. And so that's how they got my name to begin with. So it was still kind of in decent graces when I called back, and they said, great. And so they offered me, I went and interviewed. I did not meet Oprah in my interviews. I met the executive producer, Debbie DeMeo was her name, and they offered me the position. They actually offered me 2 positions. They offered me a producer role, of which there were like 8 producers, and they also offered me an associate producer role, of which there were 16. So each producer had 2 associate producer roles. I went for the brass ring. Why would you offer me both? I asked. They said, well, we believe that you can do it, but if you don't think you can take this one. Well, if you think I can do it, I'm doing it, because its pay is 50% higher than the associate producer position. So I'll take it. And I did. And it was an intense ride in Chicago. End of chapter. Water break.
I'm leaving us on a cliffhanger here.
On my first day of employment for Harpo Studios, I hopped on, I had packed a bag, showed up at Harpo. It was August of '94. And we hopped in a van and we drove to Oprah's farm in northern Indiana. And it was gorgeous. It was so pretty. And the house, it was just so lovely. Really was. And she had a famous chef at the time that had written a cookbook as well too, making the food for us. It was remarkable. So we're at a team table meeting, just kind of get to know you conversations on this first day. We'd just eaten this delicious meal, and Oprah walks in. So I'm meeting Oprah for the very first time. She is training to run the Chicago Marathon. She has had her battles with weight, and she was looking great. She was trimmed down. She was wearing I remember a yellow unitard, which maybe wasn't the best look, but she didn't care. And so the rest of us didn't care. We were proud of her. I mean, she's shedding pounds to run this marathon. But through her sweat and no makeup, she stares at myself and the two other brand new producers that just started that day and said, "This will be the most taxing thing you ever do." I will never, ever forget that. And you know what? She was right. Day after that, one of those other two producers quit, said, "I cannot handle it." The meetings were just intense, and we were brainstorming and saying, "Hey, what are we going to do this season? What shows?" Because at the time, we were competing with Sally Jessy Raphael and Phil Donahue, Jenny Jones, and the talk show world was really gross. It was really starting to become ugly, and that was in the early days of Jerry Springer's, paternity testing and all of this crazy stuff. It was crazy and innovative at that time, and innovative in getting people to tell the ugly parts of their lives. Oprah had kind of done a little bit of that. This was the year where she said, "Nope, we're going to be better. We're going to take the high road and tell richer stories, and be positive." It was also the year the ratings went down because nobody wanted to hear good stuff. They wanted to hear crummy, spicy things about what is wrong in people's lives. That's okay. So I am producing, and it was really wonderful. I got to produce a couple of really fun shows. I got to produce Annette Bening and Warren Beatty's appearance on the show. Annette Bening, oh my gosh, she was just gorgeous. She's just wonderful and so warm and great. Warren Beatty, he's an oddball, but he was awesome to me. Super, super genuine. It was really cool. And this is the first time they were actually speaking together on camera, in person as a husband and wife. And they had just done the movie, which escapes me what it is now. I don't know. Anyway, I got to do America's etiquette lesson through Oprah's lens, which was really, really quite entertaining and showing off people's bad manners. Well, gosh, one time I found a woman she was based in Chicago, who described her husband as just being slob, horrible eater, and so I had to have this guy on the show. But I wanted to get some video of him in action without knowing it. So the Oprah tech crew rigged up a briefcase with a hidden camera in it. Oprah had a restaurant called Etc. in downtown Chicago. My wife was in town with me. She was living in Minneapolis, and I was out in Chicago. We had a commuter marriage, and she would come into town every now and then. And we went to dinner. And I had the manager was in on this, and we had the briefcase set up perfectly for the table that this couple was going to come and sit at. And they sat the couple in the wrong seat, as opposed to the couple this direction here. They had the couple this direction. So I awkwardly put my briefcase up kind of on the bench, the raised ledge between tables, and I got some cool footage, actually, of him actually being pretty sloppish. Anyway, I think I only produced 5 or 6. Here's how it works with the Oprah show, is each producer has their name on the calendar, 2 or 3 weeks apart, probably 3 weeks apart. Tapings, 2 tapings a day, Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, or Tuesdays and Thursdays, I cannot recall. It is your responsibility to put a show if your name is there. Every week there were pitch meetings. Hey, let's do a topic about this, or that, or this, or that. And the EP and Oprah would sign off on it. Yep, go for it, love it, make it happen. I had a show that the theme was the death of a parent. And it was I had some really good guests, and I found a book author, a rabbi, who had some remarkably beautiful thoughts about this, but also some wild tales to share as well too. So he was a fascinating person. But I wasn't just going to put him on the chair across from Oprah for an entire hour. I wanted to bring in several other individuals to tell their stories. My luck, I say that kind of cynically and sadly, in that there was a plane crash that week. It was something in Missouri. I can't recall what, TWA maybe. I cannot recall. I'm on the phone that night, the next day, calling families who lost loved ones in this airplane. And a son of a person who lost their life laid into me. He absolutely ripped me a new one, saying, "You are an insensitive, horrible person. Do you not understand what this family is going through in this fresh moment in time?" It absolutely tore me up. It really did. It just made me question, what am I doing? And I'm using the lines saying, oh, your words are going to help others who are going through something similar, which is valid. It really is. But at that time, this guy did not need this. And I was doing this on behalf of Oprah. I just unfriended Oprah and him for the rest of their never relationship. It was just wrong. Sadly, I couldn't get any of those people, and others that I had booked canceled on me as well too. I suddenly didn't have a show. My name was the 1 o'clock taping the next day, and I didn't have anyone to come. They had 200 people for the audience were coming. They had camera crew booked. And the direct and the staff, they're all freelancers. Costs were sunk. I let a lot of people down because of my booking skills or lack of booking skills. I didn't have backups. I met with the executive producer, had to let her know. She said, "Goodbye, Peter." That was the company. I don't know how many thousands, $50,000 in production costs were lost because of my mistake, and a couple hundred people didn't get to do their bucket list and go to the Oprah Winfrey show in person because there wasn't a taping that afternoon. And it was an awful thing. It was really, really crummy. I was in a dark place after that, and I got it. I really got why they eliminated me, for sure. The third guy, by the way, that had started the same day as me, he lasted about 3 weeks longer. The truth of the matter is it's like Pony Express producers, right? Ride them till they die. And it's exhausting. And I lost probably 25 pounds over the course of my 2.5 months on staff. Oprah was right in saying it was the most taxing thing, one of the most taxing things I would ever do. Yeah, lovely. So
incredible.
The good news is that there was the contract. If I was to lose my job in the first 6 months of employment, they would pay to move me back to where I came from. And they did move me back to Minneapolis, where my wife hadn't moved yet. She was about to. She was trying to get transferred. She was working with Nike at the time, I said, honey, you better know. Yeah, don't do that. Let's stay in the Twin Cities. And so I went back there.
Did you mentioned pretty dark place after that. Did you think about leaving that world and doing something else, or was it I need to get back on this horse?
I wanted to stay in media. I didn't know what horse. I mentioned all the crazy other talk shows. The other show that was happening in like 2 miles away was the Jenny Jones show, and I knew some of the producers on that show. They came and said, hey, bring it on, come with us, come play with us. But because of that experience with that guy who'd lost his parent in a plane crash, I couldn't do it. If I can't do that, then I'm not gonna go talk about, call up people and have them talk about incest and other awful, ugly stories of people's personal lives, which is the craziest thing today now, because people put that on Instagram now, and they're sharing that, and people are okay sharing this, which is frankly a really healthy thing, but at the time it was not. It was, not a zeitgeist opportunity, for sure. So I had to wallow. So I did go back to Minneapolis, and I signed up for unemployment, and I took some time to find myself. I would go on nature walks, and here we are now in December and January, and it's single digits and snow, and it's perfect for me. It was silent and lovely, where I could just be with my thoughts and kind of, okay, get through it, then get back on your horse. And I got there. I did. I was able to find a production company, an independent production company in Minneapolis, who was producing home improvement television shows for the Learning Channel and the Discovery Channel, and in time, HGTV, the startup cable network, Home and Garden Television. And I got lucky. I mean, just having the Oprah Winfrey Show name on my resume opened that door. It got me there. There was an egotistical head who was great, actually. That he wasn't. But he loved the idea of celebrity. Here's a guy that worked with a celebrity. Let's pull him in, because they're trying. As an independent production company, they're looking for any edge to close a job, right? And they say, we got this guy that produced at Oprah. Yeah, how long did he work for Oprah? It's the question that nobody should ask. But I lucked out again, and got to do some good work with some cable network home improvement TV, and that expanded. What was great is that I was working for delivering content to both HGTV and the Discovery Channel, and my contact at the Discovery Channel actually went to work for HGTV, and they were creating a new in-house production team, and the Discovery guy and the HGTV guy both knew about me, and they came my way and said, how about it? What do you think? Would you like to move to Knoxville, Tennessee, and run an in-house production team for HGTV? And my wife and I looked at each other. We had just had our first child. We were a year into a brand new home. She was doing great things at Nike. I was still producing fun stuff with this independent production company. We took a walk to kind of weigh the pros and the cons. And we realized, it's November, it's 14 degrees outside. It's 73 degrees in Knoxville right now. I think that closes the deal for us. It does. I would move back to Minneapolis in an instant. I really would. It was a beautiful place. People were wonderful. You just wear the right clothes and you can roll with it. But at the time, that was what made the decision for us. So I showed up in Knoxville in January of '98, and I have been with that same company now. Here we are in October of 2023, and I'm still with that company.
So before we get to the growth in the career, I'm curious, everything you had done at that point was sort of talk show centric. This is a change to go to like home improvement television. So what did you have to learn? What was different about it, or was it kind of the same thing you'd been doing?
Completely different. So here's where my lack of writing caught up to me a bit. Thankfully, home improvement scripting is saying exactly what needs to happen. First, you put the screw in the blah, whatever, and or cut this off and install that. So it's instructional. So that was very, very helpful to me to kind of at least get words out, and then you can kind of add some color to it from there. Problem was, I don't know home improvement. I couldn't do. I can't. I did. My dad was brilliant and is brilliant and does wonderful things. I am not that kind of person that can do it. But because I had so much passion and skill and interest in how other people do things, I learned a heck of a lot, and I would bring them in and teach me, or it would be a real time on video instruction. I would just get the right casting person to walk me through the steps, and then I would help craft scripts from there. So it was a heck of a learning. It really was. I had great teammates who had done a lot of it before to advise. That and the shooter, the camera operator was so wonderful in kind of visually escorting me and essentially handing to me, just write what you see on the screen. I'm giving you the shots, Peter. So it's not that hard. And this was in the early days, by the way, of technology that I'm trying to think of the name of the mini computers. What I had was an HP palm top computer that I would actually climb into attics and on roofs and under in crawl spaces and actually be typing the script and as the contractor was doing it, he was just telling me real time of, hey, and we're gonna I don't even know what to say. I don't even have words for it. I've been living it for 25 years. I know home improvement, but now I can't even come up with an example. It's going to sweat the pipe. That was what I was trying to come up with, which is, yes, what the plumber would say. And yeah. So that was really, it was in many ways, again, it's almost like the JV team. It's early days of cable television. So there was a long leash to learn from before. It's like, that's a mess. And I needed that long leash on some days. And I got feedback, lots of constructive feedback from executives at the networks to say, no, let's try it this way or that way. And feedback is so valuable. It really is. I was not the kind of producer, right, that was making Citizen Kane. I knew that I needed to let others kind of help shape it, because they knew their audience better than I did at the time. And I wanted to certainly satisfy the client.
You kind of left off your kind of career trajectory since you moved to Knoxville.
I'm trying to think. HGTV Productions, I don't even remember the name of the department. I had a small department, and the responsibilities of this initial team were to produce a handful of specials. All of the series were still being produced by external independent production companies like the one I'd come from in Minneapolis, which, by the way, the name of that was Northwest Teleproductions. And so we would go to trade shows like the International Houseware Show and the International Hardware Show and the Kitchen and Bath Show, and show to consumers, show to our users, our viewers, all the latest and greatest things that are happening in the home and garden industry. One of my favorite projects, however, that first year I was there was at the White House in Washington, D.C. There was an administrator with HGTV who got a call from a press secretary, the First Lady's press secretary, who said, "My mom and grandma love your network, and we're doing Christmas decorations. Would your network be interested in coming and filming us put up Christmas decorations in the White House?" Hello? You bet. We're all over it. All over it. And so we got to go there and do that very thing. That year, since this is an archival story, was the same year that Bill Clinton, our president, was having a little trouble with a woman named Monica Lewinsky. And it was a mess of the news. And the White House press room, which is a very small space, was a sardine can of reporters from around the globe, and waiting for moments of clarity of what's going on, and is there going to be an impeachment, and tell us more, and just constantly. And there's a little door in the back corner of the White House. You see it on the news all the time. The door opens, and out pops some press aides, or eventually maybe the president never speaks from there. But every time that door opens, heads just turn on a swivel, right? Exactly, like, hey, well. Their doors were not opening now. They were tight-lipped, obviously, with this mess that was going on with Monica Gate. But I was not there for that story. And when that door opened and a press aide came out and said, "Hey, who's here for the Christmas decorations?" The 100 just cynical journalists in the room broke into just laughter and just like, "Are you kidding me? No, what are you talking about?" And I raised my hand. I'm already tall, right? I'm 6'5" to begin with, and then I'm in the back of the room by a vending machine where they have bagels from the 70s still. And I grabbed my camera guy, and we weaved our way through the journalists who snickered at us like we didn't count. Oh my gosh, it was embarrassing. And I had my denim HGTV shirt, nice big logo. I was a company guy, right? I was wearing it, and they just like, "What is HGTV anyway?" It's just a small little cable network. Watch paint dry all the time. So I got in. We were over the course of 3 days. These were the days after, right after Thanksgiving, the weekend right after Thanksgiving. We were recording video.
Filming.
Yes, in the White House. And so we would get to go in for like 15 minutes at a time and do something. And then we got to go with the pastry chef and see the cool gingerbread creation, and it was really wonderful. I did not get to interview Hillary Clinton at the time because the decorations always came out of the First Lady's office. But we did the following year. But by the third or fourth or fifth time from the press room when they say, "Hey, Christmas decorations story," the cynical journalists actually started saying, "What the hell, I'm just going to go start. I'm not getting my other story. I may as well do something." So now we're starting to get scooped by these real journalists that are turning around on Peter Jennings on World News Tonight on ABC. And which was not much of a story. Then it was very funny to watch them on the broadcast saying, "Well, nothing's going on with Bill Clinton, but the White House is getting decorated, and look at these cute little creations from Ohio that they sent in." it was, anyway, that was a wonderful, wonderful project. Ratings-wise, and that show has continued to be produced for HGTV since. So it's really wonderful that 1998 until now, it's still going on. It frankly is a kind of an entertaining program. It has been, politically interesting over the years. Not a huge ratings grabber, but it's just a sweet thing. I produced, my title was executive producer, and so I had a team of producers and associate producers that would work with crews and create. So we produced interior design shows and home remodeling shows and restoration shows. Did 1,000+ episodes across several of these topics over a good handful of years. It was probably I do not know the time period. Let's say 5 years or so. So how it works with a television network and a producer. I was still kind of treated like an independent production company. They were my client. The network was my client. There is a template when you make a show. It has to be X number of minutes. Segments 1 and 2 together, acts 1 and 2 together have to be no longer than this. But no less than this, but we would always have to submit a creative rough cut before we do a fine cut and submit it for them to broadcast, to put on the air. I notoriously would turn in shows that were fat. So it's supposed to be a 22-minute show, for example. I would turn in a 25-minute show. Not out of being an ass, but because I thought the content was so rich and I had a hard time narrowing it down, and I wanted to give them a chance to view, like, hey, no, you know what, this stuff's great. I think this stuff is weaker, it could go. But here's an interesting sequence that let's kind of tighten this up. Or here is a 5-minute sequence on how to install a toilet. You could actually do that in like 45 seconds, and that buys us all of our time right here. In that experience, though, we had this realization, and the others in the industry were coming with the same realization as well too. I'm not saying that we're the ones thinking about it. Of like, hey, there's an opportunity to actually put this cutting room floor content on the internet. That would be so cool. I mean, DVD extras were really popular at the time, and the truth is, though, that you had to dial up, and it would take 3 minutes to download a 30-second clip on a thumbnail size video. But it was growing. It was growing, and I was doing more and more of this digital video extra stuff, thinking this is pretty cool. And we had a website, HGTV.com had a website, so we had a place to actually put it up there. The executives of the company started hearing from our cable providers like Comcast and Spectrum and AT&T that we're thinking of getting into this digital video business kind of stuff. So they started building environments of their own that we would send clips to them of our shows as promos or extras, how to install a toilet things. This was before YouTube, by the way. And so the executives thought, we think there's something here. We should have some people focused on it. They tapped me to focus on it, had a team, and we focused on creating short-form video that could be distributed to our partners, that could be sprinkled onto HGTV.com, as well as managing the distribution, the path as well too. So creative and then operational as well. And away we go. And in time, then YouTube comes along, and that goes bonkers. And I leave behind my content creation side of the long form content creation side of things. Eventually, I leave behind my content creation side of things altogether, and I focus on the distribution and the programming of it. So soon, we've got services like Netflix that are interested in our long form episodes, the what you see on linear television, and Hulu and Amazon and all of these cool environments that are asking for full TV shows. So we would start sending stuff to them, and there were obviously negotiated rights with the distribution outlet that we could allow a certain amount, what have you. We got into the business, the electronic sell-through or download-to-own business, where we would send stuff to Amazon and iTunes and Google Play, where people could, download or buy an episode at a time. We got into the business of with airlines and cruise ships, sending our shows there. So I was really kind of getting into the digital distribution programming side of things. Very exciting. But then we thought, wait, this is our content. We own our content. We can do things with our content that is within our environment. So let's create our own environment. And it was part of the stretch of the industry that was called TV Everywhere. And so we created an app for every one of our brands. We had TLC Go and HGTV Go and Discovery Channel Go and ID Go and Travel Go and all of these Go experiences. Every brand, if the show ran on the network, we made it available on this app, which was awesome, very cool. And the revenue finally now is really kind of starting to come in. Now it's getting meaningful, really meaningful. Because in the early days when we were just throwing clips up, there was no revenue there. There was nothing interesting that was happening there. It was just like, early days, but we gotta be in the space, but we're not making money, but we gotta be in the space, so let's stick around. We let other people figure it out really first. And there were a lot of others that were more aggressive and figured things out, certainly. But we still came around and we made it there. So we made our TV Everywhere experiences. Then we thought, what if we put it all in one app? Let's pull it all together. People aren't going to download all 14 of our apps. If we can just put all the content in one experience, then the HGTV fans can be fans of Food Network, and they can also watch their TLC shows. And that app is called Discovery Plus. And it's been a terrific subscription video on demand service that works great. The business model is different in that people they subscribe to us directly and pay their money, as opposed to the TV Everywhere. They're paying their cable subscription to Charter and Spectrum, and then they just use their same username and password and can watch the shows. Shortly after we launched Discovery Plus, we merged. The Discovery Network's family met up with the Warner Brothers family, and we came together, and we are now Warner Brothers Discovery. One of Warner Brothers' biggest gems, particularly in the digital space, was an app called HBO Max. Fantastic. Some of the greatest programs ever, with The Wire and Game of Thrones. It's so awesome. Sopranos. Meanwhile, HGTV and Discovery has some cool things as well, not as sexy in any way. We married it together, dropped the HBO name from the name. It's called Max, and now my team runs the digital merchandising for the experience called Max. And which HBO is still very clearly the premium network and content that we offer within the experience. So I went from producing content to paying attention to the distribution of the content, to then managing the experience within the content that we provide in our owned and operated experiences of Max. So that's where we are today.
Okay, that's quite a path, and obviously, as you mentioned, quite a few pivots along the way there. what has been the favorite thing you've done? What has been the thing that has brought you the most joy in your TV career?
I'm super proud that I'm still with this company. I truly am. We've gone through some layoffs every year, and this year has been a particularly painful year. And it's cost-saving decisions and what have you. But there's also a lot of business changes too over the years, and I just walked you through the things. The learning, I've learned new businesses. I've been flexible, and I've been able to get in early on some pretty cool technological advancements, and being part of that broadly is what I'm incredibly proud of and honored to be a part of that.
So as you mentioned, you walked us through the changing media landscape, and of course we've seen it change quickly and rapidly and in a lot of ways. Tell me about being in the middle of that. Do you feel it on a daily basis that things are changing, or is it just kind of like you're inside of it and it just is sort of happening to you?
Both. We're driving it and we're surfing it and we're getting crushed by it. It is all happening. So it's quite possible that my job and my team's job doesn't exist in 5 years. It really is. There's the human and the machine element, and there's so much automation and so much AI coming in, and it's a mess right now. It's pretty cool, but it's messy. It is likely, and there are some great things that are happening as consumers. We get to embrace it and do some neat things. Fact of the matter is, we're probably 100 yards into a marathon of what's coming our way, and we can help shape where we're going. So we're trying to figure out, how does the human stay into the mix and work with the machine and the algorithms and train these algorithms to actually serve up the content that we think the consumers want. So we are heading in interesting times. We really are.
Well, tell me a little bit about that. Obviously, you can't tell us the future, but what do you project, or what are you kind of on the lookout for as you look ahead to what does come next in that kind of relationship, the human AI relationship?
Yeah. Don't fear it. Embrace it. I mean, really, and that's every look. The consumer is going to tell us what's right and what's wrong as well too, and they continually tell us that we don't have it right yet, and our algorithms don't have it right yet. So we've still got time until the machines take over, if you will. Where we are pivoting, where my team is pivoting. Is in the content creation space, the data that is coming our way, we're kind of shifting from creative content creators to data analysts, and we're embracing the KPIs, the key performance indicators that help tell us what we should be doing. So we actually are, we know how our users are engaging with our experience, and those are the signals that we have, or not engaging in the experience, and it's those signals that we can do a better job, at least today, of interpreting where we need to go and where we need to help the consumer more than what the AI is able to do at this time. So we're definitely training the AI. I may be retired by the time it really takes over, so it'll be perfect timing, perhaps. The future beyond that, the content creators, there's always going to need to be the need for good content creation. Absolutely, that's really exciting and the evolution of how shows are being produced and what shows are being produced. It's just magical. So much content to watch, and hopefully not at some point we'll just stick a chip in our head and we will watch something, but still it will need to be created, and that needs to come from the human element. So I think that that's where humans need to be involved, is kind of the upstream element of all of this.
I'm curious if you'd tell me a little bit about the sort of the 2020 experience for you. Obviously, the pandemic and the shutdown and all of that. How does that affect your position at the time, and how does it affect sort of the content creation and the whole process for you guys?
Well, it was during the pandemic that we decided to launch Discovery Plus. So we were busy. We really were. And working remote, a lot of us had already been working remotely, being based in Knoxville, Tennessee. Most of my team is based in New York or DC at the time. So I was often on Zoom calls already with them regularly. It just kind of went from 2 hours a day to 8 hours a day of doing that. So it didn't really change that. And truly, though, I don't think that we could have accomplished it without the pandemic. The reason being, work-life balance went away. It was work all the time, and you're always on. And we dug in, and everyone just gave their lives, and then said, "See ya, family," to pull together that product. Not healthy in any way. It really isn't. It burnt out a whole bunch of people that said goodbye after the launch, or then once we did launch, there was another round of layoffs and another merger and what have you as well too. But I think that it frankly worked pretty well from a business perspective, that the pandemic allowed us to do that. What made it a little bit, and actually, in addition, more people are at home watching shows, so they need us more than ever at this time. Sadly, less content is being produced because they're shut down production, much like what's going on today in Hollywood with the SAG-AFTRA strike, and thankfully the WGA strike is over. But with less original content being produced, that means that my team has to get has had to, and still has to get extra creative in the curation to show off more content from our library. That, hey, nothing new's coming, but have you seen these things? That, because we got 4,000 plus titles in the library, that surely you haven't seen all of them, and they're lots of good stuff.
Lots of old White House Christmas specials that maybe you missed the first time around.
Thank you. Bring it on. That doesn't hold up. It really doesn't. It's not good viewing anymore.
So tell me about your sort of relationship with Linfield after graduation. How have you stayed in touch with the school, and sort of what is it like being back on campus today?
Again, I would have not had the career I've had if it weren't for Linfield setting me on the path, and I'm just so grateful for that. I really, truly am, and I'm so grateful for Dr. Craig Singletary that embraced me and empowered me and inspired me and gave me freedom, and sometimes a tight leash as well too, set me to keep me directed, and I've always just continued to be a fan. I stay connected to the school through looking at football scores every weekend in the fall. I've always wanted to go to a Stag Bowl to see the championship game. Have never made it, so I hope the team makes it to one of the championship games so I can actually get there again. I have friends that are on faculty here at Linfield that keep me up to date on some of the ongoings as well. My family remains, my parents live in Oregon City. My mother-in-law lives in Corvallis, and so we come back to the state periodically, and every single time we come to campus. And I come to campus never during when school is in session for whatever reason. It's not in session when I'm here. So but I love the environment, and I've gone on far too long about how that's been important to me, but I really love it. But now being here on campus again when the students are in session, there's just such a terrific vibe. It really is great. And I love frankly, to see more diversity on campus as well. That helps grow. My daughter is named Riley after Riley Hall, where I had played college basketball, which is now Riley Center. She has come back to campus without me to take her selfie in front of the Riley sign, and it's important to her, and she embraces it. She had no interest in coming to the school. She went to the University of Kentucky, but because her view was, you can't make a small school feel big, but you can make a big school feel small. So that was her strategy for going to UK.
She chose a bourbon school over a wine school. I mean, I can understand.
Yeah,
it's a reasonable.
She did. Well, yes, that's exactly true. Yeah. Look, I get the plea for money emails and calls, and I'm happy to contribute how I can each year. But when they reach out, they give me the updates. I read the Linfield Review when it comes to me on a quarterly basis. I'm really proud of the school. It's a piece of me, and I feel like all the students here now are family in a way. And I didn't feel it, frankly, when I was still my first 6-7 years out of school so much. I loved it, I definitely did, but it was still kind of here in the community, and so it was just kind of part of the homogenous noise. Now it feels special since I'm away from it, and I wear my shirts with pride, even though nobody stops me in the Tennessee Costco or grocery store or wherever. Like, what's Linfield? They know. Although, one day in Costco, I followed a guy that was wearing a George Fox shirt, and I had a Linfield shirt on, and he didn't turn around, and I was too embarrassed to try and strike up a conversation. But yes.
No fights in the parking lot, though.
No.
Okay, that's good.
No.
So, sort of final question for you. You mentioned kind of the formative experience of being here and appreciating it now as you look back. So tell me about sort of advice or words of wisdom for students who are at Linfield now, kind of at that point in their lives where they're looking for their next thing. What would you tell them?
What I should do is I should just give you the slides of the presentation. I actually, so I spoke to a group of students yesterday afternoon. I hadn't spoken to a group of students. I'm a huge believer in the intern program at Warner Brothers Discovery. I love it. I demand that my team actually participate and have intern managers, and we rotate interns through. And so I meet with college students regularly I have over my career, but I have not presented to a group of college students. And my knees about buckled. I was so nervous talking to the kids. But I was telling my own story, just like I've been doing here. It's not difficult to talk about yourself. It's difficult to be articulate and actually to have some meaning and depth and a takeaway. And I don't know that I was clear in that first presentation yesterday. But this morning, I added a slide to my presentation, and I'm going to kind of go off of memory of some of the key points that I truly said. And really, the slide was labeled something like, "What to do now while I'm a student?" And yes, so the advice was, start now. Don't wait until you have a degree in your hand. Reach out and do informational interviews with people in whatever industry you think you're interested in, because that student card is like a free pass of informational interviews. Once you are on the job market, you're tainted in a way, like, oh, they see you coming, you're looking for a job. But if you are a student, they know it's an informational interview and it's an opportunity to start a dialogue and share. And you can learn about, oh, wow, that sounds great, or, oh, okay, I'm not going to do that. This is not for me, but thank you for your time. Good luck in your career in doing something I will never do. It's really, really valuable for that. Use your resources. Somebody mentioned to me yesterday, actually, that the Career Development Center is underused, that not enough students are taking advantage of that. So the students absolutely need to be jumping into that in the basement of Melrose Hall, as these people help with resumes, they help with contacts, they'll get you a network. They won't do the hard work so much, but they'll get you jump started. The students still have to recognize that they need to be doing the hard work as well too. It's got to come from them, or they're never going to succeed. If it's just spoon-fed to you, you're going to fail fast. You may start something high, but then it's going to fall down. Another resource is the LinkedIn, right? Start building up that and making it meaningful as well. Don't just go like with Instagram friend collecting, but make it a meaningful growth of your network, and spend time researching the companies and live the brands where you can. Learn about those brands now. Do you like what they do? Do you not like what they do? Critique the brands as well. What works? What would you do different? What doesn't work? So you're kind of getting some critical thinking expansion and practice, because that's what's going to happen when you show up at the job that day. If you get a job there, they're going to say, how can we be better? How can you make us better? And if you have those ideas already going into it, then you've got a step ahead above somebody else that's showing up at the same time. And it is competitive. I make it sound super competitive, and yes, it is competitive, but you also have to embrace a community and a team, because nobody can do any of this stuff by themselves. So find your support system. Work with your teammates, grow together, get better together. Eventually, that competitor person may be doing something really cool with another job another time, and they may have an opening that want to come back and find you in the future. That's how so much of this happens, right? There's just that people want to work with people that they trust, believe in, know that they can deliver on their job.
It's a good, solid foundation of advice there, I would say. I will ask one final question, since you mentioned, how did you meet your wife?
We're going to go for a half hour here now. Well, my wife, her name is Jackie. She went to the rival high school in Corvallis. I was at Corvallis High School.
Crescent Valley.
She was at Crescent Valley. She was. Yeah. As seniors in high school, there's not a lot to do in Corvallis. There wasn't. But Oregon State University is there. And in November, the basketball team always played exhibition games with Athletes in Action, AIA, and whom I remember they would give Christian testimonials at halftime, and they would get demolished on the first half and the second half by the Beavers. But there was some decent basketball there. So a high school teammate of mine and I sat in my parents' season tickets on an end zone, and I got tapped on the shoulder and turned around, and somebody handed me a piece of paper. And it said, want to go have, I don't even remember, this is sad that I don't remember this. Want to go have pop or ice cream or soda or Coke, or what would we say in Oregon? I don't know, we don't say pop, that's a Midwestern thing. Anyway, yeah. And I turned around, and that note had been sent down 30 rows. It traveled all the way down across 30 other shoulders, 20 other shoulders, whatever, and landed on me, and turned around, and it was Jackie and her friend Michelle. And we gave them the thumbs up, and we met them at the Super Deli on Monroe Street, and I hardly said a word. I was just like, what is this? And she was so wonderful, but the three of them did most of the talking, and I was kind of just an idiot, and disappeared. We went away, and that was the end of that. Then she starts dating my best friend, who wasn't John, it was a guy named Chris. And because Chris was my best friend, I'm starting to see them a bit more. I'm seeing Jackie more. It recounts that all Chris would talk about is me. So it's like, well, dang it! I was trying to get connect to Peter, but he was, like this standoffish goof. Then our team, her girlfriend group, my guy, we graduate from high school. Our friends group start hanging out in the summer. We're going to the drive-in movie theater. We're going to the American Legion baseball games and just having a good old time. And one night at the drive-in theater, Jackie came driving up, and she, you're always parking in the same area there. She was looking for her friend Sherry. Said, well, she's not here, but join us, hang out with us. In the end, she admits that she actually lied. Sherry was not going to be there that night. She knew what she was doing. We ended up snuggling under a blanket, and that was our official first date on July 6th of 1984. So tomorrow is our 32nd wedding anniversary, October 26th.
Congratulations in advance.
Thank you.
That's basically a John Mellencamp song that you just gave us there. Small town America. That's amazing. Well, I'm glad we ended on that. So that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Sharing your story with us. Welcome back to campus. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to let you off the hook.
Thank you very much.